Welcome back, guys. We were just wrapping up Endless Foot Drag, so I shot an invite out to a few friends that had heard about this legendary place and wanted to check it out for themselves. And I was just excited to give them a grand tour of my favorite place in the Midwest. The endless foot dragging didn't end in Fredonia. And if you get excited about nature, lake life, and losing yourself in a labyrinth of winding rivers, then this video is for you. I feel like I've slalomed this bridge 1,000 times, which probably isn't far off from the actual number, but there I was, ripping between pillars like it was going out of style, with a grin on my face bigger than ever before. Because whatever was in the air on this trip provided nothing but good vibes and phenomenal flying. I knew the guys were in for a special treat, and this place was about to absolutely blow their minds. There's no shortage of shallow water here, so you can never pack enough dry socks. What makes this place so foot drag friendly is that it's one giant floodplain. Every few years, the lake rises, covering this place in water. When it drains, it cuts all these little channels in the earth, giving us our own little paramotor racetracks to fly down. The flooding wipes away any trees or vegetation, giving us a clean slate to fly without any obstacles. Thanks to the marshy landscape, I've jokingly nicknamed this place the Kansas Everglades, which feels pretty fitting, minus the pythons. But what it lacks in exotic pets, it makes up for in wildlife, especially birds, which make a much better wingman than a python anyway. It's no secret that Kansas has some of the most unreal sunsets you'll ever see. And the only way to make that view better is with the sun's reflection off the water and being surrounded by a few good friends. Towards the end of this flight, we ventured into the Flint Hills. These bluffs are more like 100 to 200 feet tall, but if you use your imagination, you could almost trick yourself into thinking you're flying along a mini mountain range. I floated by my friend Lewis, who was clearly having the time of his life up here. Then I buzzed over towards my friend Joe Orsi, and it really seemed like we were all riding the same high that night. Another friendly wingtip bump, and it was time to head back towards the LZ. Very few things compare to foot dragging a stream on a warm summer night, and without a twitch in the air, we all took advantage. My friend Nick snuck in one last pass under the mile-long bridge before sunset, and just like that, it was time to go dry off by a nice cozy campfire, before doing it all over again the next morning. I peeked my head out of the tent to watch Lewis blasting off into one of the most peaceful landscapes, and almost instantly, I was wide awake and ready to fly. One by one, our parachutes bloomed into the sky. We put one foot in front of the other until gravity loosened its grip, and it was just us sitting in our little chair planes watching the fog roll off the water below. And those of us willing to risk a few goosebumps were about to cash in on yet another unforgettable flight. I think one of the rare beauties of this place is its endless diversity. Pick any direction, and you have a never-ending playground stretching further than our little 5-gallon fuel tanks could ever hope to take us. No two flights here are the same. It took me years to find this bonus bridge, as I call it, and even after 6 years of flying this spot, I still discover something new on each flight. I'm still learning the history of this valley, from the sunken cities dwelling beneath the lake, the abandoned railroads, the limestone ruins hiding in the hills, and unlocking new areas I didn't know previously existed. Tuttle Creek is the perfect place to let your curiosity wander, to see things from a perspective most will never get to experience. And this was just the first 5 minutes of the morning. I promised the group a cross-country flight up the jagged shoreline that morning, so we followed one of the foggy rivers until the train began to open back up. Then, the wildlife I was telling you guys about earlier decided to greet us with an avian escort as we climbed to altitude to safely cross the water. When you think of Kansas, you probably don't think of pelicans, but here they are, quickly becoming one of my favorite birds. And even though this lake is man-made, there's something raw and rugged about it. It's not overdeveloped, and there are literally hundreds of miles of limestone-lined coves just waiting to be explored. This part of the lake requires less imagination to feel like you're in the mountains of Kansas, and I have to admit, it's a ton of fun carving down the cliffs of pine trees. While I'm shocking everyone with unstereotypical facts about Kansas, I might as well add its sandy beaches to the list. I noticed a couple dudes camped out down by the water here, and they seemed pretty stoked to wake up to their own personal air show. I gave them a big yee-haw as I foot drug onwards down the beach, with Joe, Nick, and Lewis tailing right behind me. Eventually, we climbed back up to altitude where the lake began to look more like a map, and the worries of the world below begin to look and feel pretty small. The plateau-like hilltops here are really cool, and if you look close enough, you'll even find the artist's signature on the side of one of these hills. We spent hours exploring that morning and somehow only covered the tiniest fraction of the actual lake before heading back to the LZ. For once, Mother Nature was on our side. Wind conditions were perfect once again that evening, so I talked my good friend Travis into making the drive out here. We had flown the spot one other time together, and even though he didn't have much time to kill, he already knew it'd be worth the long drive. The mission for that evening was wind turbines. Anything that can put the landscape into some kind of perspective is always fun to fly near. And major bonus points if you can get up close without getting hit with rotor. I actually used to climb wind turbines for a living at one point in my life, and they always seem to draw me towards them in some way. But as majestic as they are, it's hard to beat a rusted-out, old, shotgun-blasted Gen 1 windmill, somehow standing the test of time. Golden hour was hitting just right in the Flint Hills that night. The terraces cast captivating shadows across the landscape, and there was something special about the simplicity of the scene, and knowing the guys were soaking up the same incredible view. These days, I prefer my 140cm blade prop over these massive 140-foot blade propellers, but it's still kind of nice to float by from time to time, and wonder what life would be like if I was still shimmying up these turbines today. The long XC flight back was straight out of a dream. I said farewell to Nick, Lewis, and Travis, and the following night, Joe and I had the entire playground to ourselves. We really didn't have much of a game plan for this flight. I just remember looking at Joe and saying, let's top off the fuel tanks and see how far we can go. Naturally, I headed straight for the bridge. I practiced my slalom skills until Joe got in the air, and then casually foot drug my way into formation right behind him. I had to snag some epic video of Joe flying under the bridge. It was the least I could do after Joe previously snapped a few of my all-time favorite photos of me while flying in Iceland and Baja together. And funny enough, this was actually our first trip flying together in the USA. Where it gets even funnier is that Joe is even from Kansas and went to college 30 minutes from the spot that we took off from. And by now, you guys are probably starting to get the picture. Seeing pelicans and all kinds of crazy wildlife here was no fluke on the first few flights. This place simply has a little extra magic sprinkled on top, just the way we like it. Joe had just unboxed a new Sirocco 3 and he was just getting it figured out on this trip. I think it's really cool to look back and see how far we've both come since our first flights together back in Mexico. We were just baby pilots getting it all figured out. With the experience level we have now, looking back on Baja is even more intense after seeing some of the shenanigans that we pulled off. Joe and I have flown 4 different countries together at this point, and they all have a pretty common theme of having beaches. And while Kansas isn't quite as tropical as the rest of them, there's still something about this place that ranks it right towards the top. I hope you guys like foot dragging because we had to have dipped our toes in the water for about a 10-mile stretch on this one. We were already running out of daylight, but we traced the curves of the shoreline as far south as we could get. Eventually, we came up on this really cool looking area with pointy mounds covered in grass. Instinctively, we circled around them like fish in a fishbowl. Most mornings here, these coves will be blanketed in fog, and these pointy mounds protrude upwards like little green islands in the sky. We made it to the far end of the lake, and we noticed several boats on the water below. I went in for a closer look to say hello to what appeared to be the local rowing team just out for an evening paddle. Now that I'm replaying all the footage, 10 miles might be selling ourselves a little bit short, but we weren't done yet. We had a few more miles of limestone shoreline before we hit the dam on the far side. Golden hour was popping off once again, and we were quite literally and figuratively soaking it all in. Once we reached the dam, I buzzed past these massive floodgates that actually carved a really cool canyon back in the day, and as much as I wanted to keep exploring, the sun was beginning to set, and we still had a 20-mile cross-country back to the LZ, with a tailwind and a Kansas sky that just got prettier as the sun set. Between perfect lighting, wildlife, wind, and friendly boaters below, it was like we couldn't miss. And thankfully, on our final night out here, the wind died just in time for golden hour. Although we had a shorter flight window, we moved up the lake a ways to launch, allowing us to explore some rivers and lakes that we'd never seen before. A shorter flight doesn't necessarily mean less fun. It just means you have to up the bar and cram twice as much action into a 1-hour flight as you would your typical 2-hour flight. This is something I've become pretty good at over the years. Since you guys have already seen this part of the lake, I will happily speed through it all, but I'm telling you, the waterfoot drags out here truly never get old. I waved at some kids cruising down the highway, and then we stumbled upon the rowing team once again. I'd take my paramotor over a boat any day, but one thing we could all agree on is that it was a great day to be on the water. I waved at some anglers down on the Big Blue, and we followed this river until it converged with the mighty Kansas River. I dropped about a dozen pins on sandbars that would be perfect to fly camp on one of these days. But this flight really had it all. Wildlife in every direction, crazy irrigation system patterns, and countless miles of foot dragging. It's safe to say, Joe and I had successfully crammed as much fun into a small window as humanly possible. You know it's a great flight when you cover so much ground and you're still itching to see what's around the next corner. The further we flew, the more interesting the landscape became, just giving us one more reason to revisit Tuttle in the future.
My port base cam. It seems like you did okay. My feet are so cold.
This will always be one of my favorite places to fly, and it was awesome taking you guys along for the ride. Thanks for watching, guys.